Hello, beautiful, and welcome to the podcast where we're moving the conversation forward about the choices you make in your daily life. I'm your host, Monica Cox, and I'm here right alongside of you, learning, growing, observing, and trying to make better choices consciously and subconsciously. Together, we're going to become better versions of ourselves and have raw, honest, open conversations about the things that truly affect our lives. And maybe, just maybe, finally get to a place where everyone else's BS doesn't trigger us. So that was like the first, like we just got that. And then I just like scanned Abigail's reading for one of my clients. And I'm like, what the fuck?
First time it's ever happened. I was all like, I don't even know what she's gonna do with this. If you need my help a little bit more, like, let me know. But
Yeah, like that is, it kind of like goes in, and I don't know how deep we can get into this topic because I have like zero information by it, but I have a lot of questions. Like, these things that we can't see, right? Because I work with Tally and she sees stuff that I'm like, how am I ever supposed to get over that? Like, that's like how? Like, no amount of meditation or awareness of this physical earth is going to allow me to know that I signed some fucking contract, like 5 generations ago that has stuck me to the bond of this, right? Like these quote unquote soul contracts, whether you believe them or not, to then have this soul contract that you're not going to have kids, but yet you're desperately trying Earthside. And I mean, and most of my clients obviously are doing everything.
yeah.
Like, what the fuck? Like, I don't swear
So
that much, but I'm like, oh, there's a lot of fire. Like, how are we supposed to navigate Earth? Like, fuck this shit, I'm
so
out.
so what I will tell you, as somebody who like knows that I contracted into not having children in this life, number one, it is not a what's the word I'm looking for? It is not a God, what's the word I'm looking for? Mm, it's not a surprise. Okay. Like I'll say it like that. That's not the word I was looking for, but that's the way I'll put it. It's not a surprise. If somebody were to come up to me and be like, Abigail, you contracted into not being a mom this life, I would have been like, yeah, yeah, because I, for the majority of my life, have been like, no kids. But if something were to happen where the perfect partner came or something just changed in my life that made me go, you know, I think I do want kids. I would have to go in and do the work to renegotiate my contract and say, you know what, spirit babies out there in the universe, I'm open for
Wait.
business.
Do the work with who?
Huh?
Like, do the work with who?
With your higher self, with God, with this your spirit babies. Like if you're of the opinion that like spirituality and energy is something real, then you understand. And if you're of the opinion that each individual person has a soul and has free will and choice to say, yes, I'm going to come into this life, and that free will starts prior to you becoming a 2-year-old and developing your own little personality, then you have to you can't you have to suspend your idea that for the that prior to that 2-year-old getting a personality, that they have the choice to say, no, you're not available for business. That you went and said, I'm going to choose that person as my mom and that person as my dad, and I'm choosing this path of life. And then I'm writing it all out, saying, these are the lessons that I want to learn. And because I want to learn these lessons in life in order to advance my soul to the next level, to get me one step closer to God and unity and oneness, that you have that ability to choose, and you have to do that work prior to coming into this life. It's not just two earth humans decide to fuck and like all of a sudden you've got baby and that's as easy as it is. That seems so like that would mean that free will doesn't fucking exist. And like that I as a spirit baby had no choice whatsoever, and that I am really not a being prior to my mom and my dad deciding to hook up and making me.
Yeah, like it would be like there's no divine assignment then. You know what I mean? Like I totally hear everything you're saying tracks. I got
Okay. So we're writing this contract, right? Or like, like in that contract, is there like a sub clause of like I can change my mind? Ha ha ha. Like it doesn't
Every
work like
contract,
that.
because of free will, every contract can be changed 100%. Every contract can be changed. And some lessons need hard things to happen in order for lessons to be learned. So things like diseases, like most of the time, chronic diseases, terminal illnesses are contracted in as like fail safes, that if you are doing your work, if you wake up, I hate that term, but we'll use it because that's the, common vernacular. If you're on track and you wake up and you do your work, then certain things in your contract won't happen because you've specifically placed them there because they're nothing more than fail safes. But if you're not on the right track, if you are not making your way to reaching your path and purpose, living your divine impact, actually like meeting the people that you're supposed to meet, then your fail safes kick in because God and you, your higher self, want your soul to succeed. Everything in this universe is about your success in moving towards oneness and unity and growing in elevation and consciousness. Everything. And that's why the Bible and every holy book says that everything bad has a positive effect because it's all happening to you because on some level you chose that could potentially happen to you. It doesn't mean that it has to. It doesn't mean that it should. It just means that if you are not waking up to you and your life, then certain things can happen to you. But there are also things like me deciding in this life, I don't want to be a steward of somebody else's soul through their life, through my life. That is what being a parent is. It's stewarding a soul or multiple souls through life, deciding that you are going to be their guide or not be their guide. There are some parents that are terrible fucking parents. We know this, right? And that should never, in like earthly 3D terms, should never be parents. But they are. Why? Because they weren't the ones that are like making that grand decision in the present moment. That
Totally.
decision was made prior. The two souls, the baby and the parent who's really fucked up, got together up in the ethers and said, you know what? I understand you're going to live a really trashy life more than likely, but I can really use the lessons that I'll learn from being neglected, from being abused, I can use this to advance my soul. Or I've got some weird fucked up karmic bullshit that I need to deal with because I hurt people in multiple lives and I need to atone for that. I need to live that hard life so that I can clear out the red in my ledger. So it's like, and people like to think it's all love and light and it's all just, we're all here for happiness and fun. Like, no, you're on earth. Go somewhere else for that shit. Like, you're on earth.
It
You chose this hard shit.
It's so like literally what you're saying on so many different levels. Cause obviously I do not have children either. And I will say, I don't think this is this is like a perfect, but it's like the opposite. I don't actually think that that was a part of my contract. Because there were seasons in my life where I thought for sure I was going to have kids. Like I wanted to have kids. And then something shifted in me and I was like, absolutely not. I am so fucking unavailable for a child to come into this body. It's not even funny. I think I've said this to you before, Abigail. I
Mhm.
literally, the first time that we were going to Puerto Rico, like 2 days before going, I had a dream where a spirit baby came in and asked me if I remember this. Literally asked me if it was the right time. They were ready to come in. They asked for permission. And I fucking said, no, you're going to ruin my trip to Puerto Rico. And
That's a perfect example of like how a spirit baby, how another soul has free will to ask you, to ask your higher self and say, are you willing to renegotiate here? Are you willing to be the vessel that brings me forth, that allows me to come into this life and create my impact? And you were like, no, I'm sticking with my original contract.
I'm
I don't
still
want it.
good.
I don't
I'm
want it.
still good. And yeah,
No.
and I love the other perspective that you just brought in. I thought was a beautiful way of articulating it, because I think like I look at that relationship with my dad. Like my dad should not have had children, yet he had four, and it was a fucking terrible, hellacious childhood, right? Should not have existed. However, like for years and years and years, I housed so much resentment and anger about how my life could have been different and why I was the one out of all these people that got sacked with this POS type of individual and the shit that I had to walk through. But like now, as an entrepreneur, oh my God, am I so glad that I agreed to have a trash bag dad, because that trash bag dad made me so goddamn resilient and made me be able to count on me and to trust myself and to be independent enough and to be self-led enough. The only way I am succeeding as an entrepreneur is because of my trash bag dad. And so like I also see that what I'm doing and what I'm breaking this generation is literal money lineages, scarcity mindsets. Like I'm changing the way that wealth looks like in my specific lineage. And I know that part of that was having the experience to get the fortitude from my dad in that trash experience. But like that resonated so deeply with me because it's exactly how I view it. Like when my dad died, I literally looked at it as like recognizing how much he sacrificed being this individual in this lifetime to actually allow my siblings to have these lessons that had to be learned in this way for us to do what we needed to do for each of our souls in this lifetime.
Yeah, okay. So I get it all. Get it. Totally resonates. But there's still questions, right? Okay. Um, really just going back to how do you know, right? Because I mean,
How do you know
most
what your contract is?
yeah,
Is that the
like
question?
well, like how do you yeah, not necessarily your contract, right? Because if there's free will, then like does it really matter what you chose to contract in, right? Like I think as a the human beings that we are moving through, okay, this is what I truly want, or is it this is what I think I want? Does the contract actually matter when you have that free will and you're like, okay, actually no, I'm here, I see this human experience and actually I'm choosing to go that way, right? Like I know I've got like multiple spirit babies lined up and it is like doors fucking shut. No one's coming in anymore. My name is Monica. There's like a Saint Monica of children. Like my whole destiny was like children, right? But I know now that it's very overwhelming. Two is enough, right? So
Mhm.
when you are a humaning through this conscious experience and you're like you want something and you're willing to do the physical work and the spiritual work, how do you almost kind of like jump a few levels if your contract is like no kids, doesn't matter what you do? How do you, or how do you do the work, right? Because I'm imagining the normal work that we think of spirituality, breath work, mirror work, all that kind of stuff, isn't going to be enough to change a contract. I don't know. Like, that's where my head is going. Like, surely there's like some up level shit, like maybe working with someone like you, how I work with Tally, of like, I wouldn't know half of this stuff if I wasn't willing to be open. Can you do it alone? I
You can, you absolutely can. And I would say the first step, if you're going to do it alone, is to one, okay. This is going to sound weird to anybody who knows me and knows how I work, but this is the way that I would tell somebody who is like, Abigail, I think whatever you're saying is like trash pandas, like you're verbally saying that, but you're like, but you know what? I'm sitting here struggling and I know that there is something in my contract that I just don't want to be there anymore. And if I even believe this in even a tiny little bit, let me just cover all my fucking bases, acting as if like, I'm gonna be religious because, even if there's a God, then I cover my base. If there's not, no big deal. If this is one of those moments for you, this is how I'd say you'd start. Okay. Prayer. Okay. Prayer is the way to do a couple of different things. You can do prayer in kind of in my opinion, a trashy way where you're basically just being like, God, please give me something. Or you can do prayer in a way that is actually helpful and you can pray to something, okay, and have a conversation of pure honesty. You're not just asking for something. You are sitting here trying to uncover what it is that is in you that is blocking your way. Okay. Who you pray to doesn't really matter. So you can be any culture, any religion, any nationality, whatever, and you have something higher than you that you can pray to. If you're just a flat out spiritual, agnostic, whatever, and you're like, I'm going to pray to me, my higher self, that works too. Okay. At that point, what comes to you in that conversation needs to be the work that you do. What comes through in those conversations could be multiple things. It could be fears. I don't think that I'm worthy of being a parent. It could be emotions of envy. I've felt my entire life that up in through my mid 30s that or my late 30s that I don't want to have the responsibility of a child. And now I'm looking at all of my friends and all of my family who are anywhere between the ages of 25 and 45, and they've all got babies or they've all got children that they've grown up. And I've been hearing year after year after year after year how amazing it is and how life changing and how life affirming, because for them it was. And now you are envious of not being able to take your 10-year-old to soccer practice or ballet class. And now you are sitting here going, I am just going to grasp onto this fact that I am in my later mid years saying, I want to have a child. Well, you have to work through that because let me just be very honest, it's crap. It's crap. If you're not coming into wanting to be a parent for a pure reason and you're coming into it because you're envious of your friends and family, I'm telling you, what good does that do to the child that you're going to birth? And I really then I'm like, is it any wonder for you if that is where you're coming from, that is it any wonder for you if that's where you're coming from that you don't have a baby, that you are struggling to get pregnant? How would you feel if somebody was like, well, I'm going to be your friend just because I'm envious of the fact that my friends over here have Black friends? Like, I don't want to be your token Black friend. Like, F off. Right? I don't want to be your token child because of that. Right? If you have holes and wounds in you that come up during this conversation about how you feel like having a child will somehow heal that wound in you, why are you wanting to have a child, because you are deficient and feel like that child can somehow fix you?
And I think you can relate that to everything, right?
Yeah.
Money, a relationship, the big house, like whatever it is that you're now seeking so hard and unable to necessarily attain, even though you're quote unquote doing the work. you're just not being radically honest with yourself that it's actually truly not what you want, or and maybe even in line of what your soul contract is. I heard this one other amazing woo-woo lady on the internet saying, everyone's going, be authentic, be authentic. Authenticity is like the thing. And she's just like, that's bullshit. You have to be, who you truly are supposed to be, not being the like what you think, like, speaking your mind because you're going to speak your mind and you're going to be authentic. Is that truly in line with your soul, and I suppose your soul contract?
It's a
It's a
valid
good way
point.
to look at it.
Yeah, that's a valid way. Yeah. I guess like the way that I look at it, and you know how you were just talking about this, Abigail, about how in the end the goal is really to come back to that oneness, and however many lifetimes that takes, right? Like I guarantee I've been on this planet many times not doing the damn thing I know I'm supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? Like I know it, right? I know it. But now I sit here and it's like that space of like, for me, it's not even authenticity. It's like I always just try to stand in that light of, is this how God looks at me? Is this how God sees me? Is this the highest light that God sees me in? And it's like constantly trying to be in that light. Because to me, like I look at it as like a mirror image. Like if I can see God as this oneness, this high I don't even know. Like, you don't even need to, there aren't words to fully describe it, right? But if I can see God in this way, is not the intent eventually to get to the point of being able to hold yourself in that same light and seeing yourself in that same way, and then reflecting that back out to the world, right? Like, is that to me is like the ultimate motherfucking goal. And it's like the hardest. I mean, for me personally, just in this lifetime, I can't tell you how many times, I don't know why the word today is trash for whatever reason, but for me, I can't tell you how many times I used to look at myself going like, you're a trash panda. Like you're the trash, you're ratchet. You know what I mean? Like that's what I thought for so long. But now it's like this exact opposite effect of like constantly trying to be the light that I see when I look in that mirror image of God.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I have
And
to
in
bring this
that,
up 1 second, Abigail.
yeah, of
You guys
course.
are gonna laugh. So I had a friend on the podcast who listens to the podcast, and he was like, he's very interested in all this, and he is like, when you guys talk about reincarnation, I feel like it's similar to Scientology. And I was like, oh, I don't
There's a
really
little
know.
bit of truth in everything. A little bit of truth in everything.
God, that's funny.
And I don't know anything about Scientology. But I mean, and just to like in this conversation here, we don't need to get into it. But one, yes, there's a little truth in everything, but also it's like the fine edge of belief systems and cults, right?
Totally.
Right.
Totally.
Yes. Yeah. And that's where I'm like, you know what, you can say that this is like absolute, this whole conversation, you could be like, you know what, I listen, I'm hearing you, none of this is resonating, and I say that's totally fine, that's totally fine, and I invite you to continue going out and having sex and just doing all of the physical stuff, and I pray to everything good and whole out there that all of that work that you put in gets you where you want to go.
Yeah.
100%. I wish you all of the best, and I throw all of my woo-woo witchy shamanic powers to you through this podcast. Go and prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. I that I am a scientist through and through in that. Prove me wrong.
Yeah. And I think
Show
the
me
thing
that
is,
that doesn't matter.
yeah. Do you find in your own journeys that your consistent action develops the results, develops the proof, right? Because there's so much of moving through life and right, like these soul contracts and all that, that you're just never gonna get a scientific study on it. You're never gonna get like the whole world saying the exact same thing. But for yourselves, it's just like, okay, let me just try it, right? Because we're not talking about like well, maybe you are, Abigail, I don't know, but like chicken feet and like, you know, like great, you
I do
know,
not like chicken feet, but
you know, you're
but I am
literally
a schma.
right. When I think about what you were saying is it just comes back to getting silent and present and listening to, you know, the unseen around you. And most people don't do that because they're either stuck in the past or too far in the future.
Yeah, and I would say that when you sit down and you can have that conversation with yourself, your higher self, God, whatever, right? The whole point of why I'm brought up, like, this is where you'd start, especially if you're like, I'm not a woo-woo person. Obviously, you can totally go and you can work with a shaman like myself. You can go up into the Akashic records, you can see your contract, you can physically like rewrite it, like you can do that work. But if that is too much for you, if that is just not something that resonates with you, sitting down in that silence, having that real conversation with yourself about why it is that you want to do anything. Dude, you're literally sitting down with your notebook, writing out what comes to you in your own silence, out of your own head. That is a contract.
Mm-hmm.
You are putting it down on paper. You've
Yeah.
just physically rationalized why you are where you are and where you want to go. I don't know what, if that's not a contract, I don't know what is.
Mm-hmm.
So, screw all of the, well, like meta-ness that it can be, make it physical. Write down, you want to be a mom, write down, and then write down why. And if your why is kind of trash, right, you're right, Kim, the word is trash today. If the reason why is kind of trash, then ask yourself how you can make it not that. Ask yourself what needs to happen for you, either on a physical level, on an emotional level, on a spiritual level, on a mental level, that can make your why be more concrete, more real, more honest. And right there, you've renegotiated a contract again. Only the best part about it is it's not with some weird out there, something that half the world doesn't believe, half the world does believe, whatever. It's with you. It's with the best person to have a contract. It's with you. It's with yourself.
But that's where,
And
like, that's the space where it's like, I completely agree with you. And then I heard you say, Monica, like the actioning it into existence, right? Like, that's the space where I feel like most people have the gaps.
Mm-hmm.
That's the space that most people won't actually align with what it is they want and they desire in their life for a variety of reasons, whether they feel they're unworthy of it, whether if it feels way too out of reach, or they just have like no self-concept or no self-esteem. Like, it doesn't matter, but like that's the space. Like, it's easy to me, it's easy to do the quote unquote what like surface level people would say, like the manifestation work, right? Like, it's easy to script that shit out. It's easy to, what are those old methods? I'm trying to think. There was like a 30-30-30 method or something. You like say it 30 times, you write it 30 times. I don't even fucking know. Whatever. Like, any one of those methods, like, that's the easy fucking aspect. The hard aspect is actually choosing to be that motherfucking person. And I think that's the space where, if you are that person, if you are that person that says, this is what I want, this is who I have to be, so I'm gonna fucking be that person, even if I wobble, even if I jump out of it for a little bit and then I come back in, but you always come back to that space of what it is you're trying to create or achieve. You are, you've heard me say this, you are literally like the top 10% of humans. And I think we don't give, and I even put myself into that camp, I don't think we give ourselves enough credit. It's like that mental drama that comes back in that's like, oh, like do we really deserve it? Am I doing enough? Am I blah, 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 blah? When really it's like, holy shit, put yourself in a room with these other 8 billion humans and you are literally in the top 10%. Fucking act like it, you know?
Yeah.
100%.
And I guess what's coming up for me is kind of that like that missing piece I had for so long is that unpacking the luggage, right? Unpacking the baggage that you maybe aren't aware of or you're hiding from, or someone signed you up for a damn contract that you didn't know of. all that kind of aspect of it. And I think that's when you truly start showing up for yourself in that way and get that kind of, face the fear and do it anyways. That's when like life like radically shifts.
Yeah, because you're embodying it. You're embodying that which you truly want to happen and be and become, right? Instead of sitting here pretending like you are. It's about stepping in. And I know Kim talks about this all the time. Like these are the types of people she wants in her world. And if we're being like incredibly honest, this is who we all want in our world.
Exactly.
I don't want clients in my world that are like, "Oh, Abigail, just fix me. Just do this healing and fix me." Okay, well, yes, am I the surgeon of the like medical intuitive world, and is there some things that I can do that you cannot because I have skills that I have cultivated and you have not? Yes, and if that situation comes up, am I more than happy to sit in and go in and do that work for you? Yes, but I will be very honest, that's 10%, less than that probably. That's such a small fraction of the people who could or will ever work with me. The majority of the people who will or do work with me do have the skills already innately, or are it's very easy for me to teach, and they should go out and do it themselves. And in doing it themselves, they become the very thing that they've wanted all along. And I didn't have to, all I had to do was create the space that made you feel like a safe little duckling on a little pond so that you could kick your little legs and do the work. That's it. And that's why I love my job. That's why I love it. That's why I hate modern medicine right now on like so many levels. Because it is a bunch of people who just come in being like, just give me a pill that fixes me. And I'm like, that's not the way it works. No.
No, and I do think I'm like, I'll be curious what your thought is from both of you on this. Do you see the next generation, and not even the next generation, like the generation that is here now, that where we're all sort of seeing the writing on the wall, we're seeing the man behind, the screen or whatever the fuck that is, right? We're seeing that. Like, do you think that there are people now who are going to start to move towards, I don't want that fucking pill?
All right, guys, we are going to pretend like it's 1992 and we are going to pause this episode. It's to be continued. This is called anticipation. If you have not felt this in a really long time, you're welcome. I think it's a feeling that we all need to bring back into our lives. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. And thank you once again for tuning in and looking forward to continuing this conversation on the next episode. Thank you so much again for joining us here on Choices. You can go ahead and leave a 5-star review because we're all friends here. But if you really want to move the conversation forward, please connect with us on our social media accounts, which you can find the links below. Have a beautiful week, and we'll see you next time here on Choices.